September 23rd, 2015, I'm Dana Durnford, also known as nuclearproctologist.org, and you can find my videos at Beautiful Girl by Dana on YouTube. And so here's a 30-second trailer before we get started. September 23rd. And so I'll just turn the gain down a little bit. I had to get a new microphone. I'm worn out, 6 weeks on the ocean. I'm grateful and humble. And so pleased that this is all over. And so pleased that we get an opportunity now, in my eyes anyway, to have a conversation, to have a debate, and to seek a better future for every generation ahead of us. And we couldn't have that without the information and the confirmation of the tidal pools of the coastline of British Columbia, of the bird species, of the insects, of the mammals, and the health of the entire coastline. And so a lot of people probably don't understand, because I've been on the ocean maybe 260 days in the last 365 days, and I used to blog literally 7 nights a week, 1 hour Fukushima blogs. And you know, we had 25,000 supporting documentations before I went on the ocean. We had done 9,000, I had done 9,000 headlines live on this channel. And I've had over 30 videos knocked down on my site a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. I've been on the ocean for 6 weeks. And I covered that before I went on the ocean, each of the videos. And none of that slows me down or stops me. None of that sways me, because we had 25,000 supporting documentations, 5,000 pictures. The nuclear proctologist has around 2,000 of the pictures. You can download them usually underneath all of my videos. There's a link directly to TEPCO's website, and you can look at the reactors yourself. And so we've never seen a complete meltdown on the planet before until Fukushima. And Fukushima, I'll say hi to everybody in a minute. Fukushima is 100% meltdowns. Chernobyl was a 30% meltdown, a single reactor, and Chernobyl was a very small reactor, say 1/3 the size compared to any of the reactors in Fukushima in Japan at the Daiichi power plant. Now, Chernobyl stopped after 10 days. That's why they got a sarcophagus over it, if you want to call it that. A containment over it, they call it. I call it just a, show and tell. It's just the building is deteriorated. They have another one that's going to go over that one. And there's a Wigner effect about radiation. It's like a screwdriver you buy at the shop. It's not magnetized, but if you lay it on a battery, it's magnetized for the length of that lifespan of that screwdriver. And radiation does that to material. And so it's so hard to wrap your mind around what happens and why the tidal pools are so important to me, I'm sure. Because whales and porpoises and the mammals and animals and the fish, the salmon and tuna and everything else are way up the food chain. And so if you were going to look at damage from an ecological disaster, you would look at the bases of the food chain, you would look at the nursery of that food chain, you would look at the smallest animals. But you got to take into consideration what happened was that this was unprecedented. This is no different than an alien attack upon the planet. This is no different than a meteorite coming at our planet. And we flushed that out with 9,000 headlines, and I've 25,000 supporting documentations, and that's just originally. I've seen days here where we gathered up 500 more supporting documentations. And so the reason you have tourist laws and the reason you have nuclear holding sites, because you don't have a waste site. You can't. There is nowhere to contain this stuff, this nuclear material. It's not waste because it lasts for hundreds of thousands and millions of years and billions of years. And 97% of the reactor lasts billions of years. The uranium. And so when you take an element and you put it through a chain reaction, it's different than the original element. And so a banana, a potato chip, a walking in sunshine, and getting on an airplane and dental x-rays have all been equated with man-made radiation. And I'm sure you can remember in the media saying you would get more radiation from getting on an airplane or a dental x-ray than you would from a nuclear accident. And they would say you get more radiation from a banana than you would from a nuclear accident, or more radiation from potato chips. They really do that all the time. They've been doing those same words, those same sentences for 70 years. And before I get off track here, I want you to think about the coastline of British Columbia in particular. So the coastline of British Columbia, right at the high tide line, the trees start right there. And so for most of the coastline, the only shore and rocks exposed are when the tide is low. And if not, then it's a stretch of the coastline 100 feet off the shore. From the tree line is the coastline itself. Because some areas are weathered that way. And so at low tide, the rocks that are exposed are vulnerable to the sunshine. And they have around 600 algae, kelps, that dominate that tidal zone. So when the sun goes down, there's 600 algae. And all the invertebrates, there's 6,500 of them, that we recognize as the indigenous population of the coastline. And there's around 4 million species in the ocean. So the species I talk about are the ones that are considered indigenous to the coastline of British Columbia and have been studied heavily by all the major institutions on the planet. Canada is the most privileged place on the planet, bar nothing on this planet. We don't lock our doors or our windows generally. We don't worry about getting pulled over. We don't worry about someone shooting you in the street. We don't shoot each other in the street, except for rare, and these are usually alcohol-fueled, rare occasions. Canada has always been a privilege. We have lots of water and lots of land, and we don't have a very big population, 34 million or something. And we have just as much land as America has. But I want you to understand why this is playing out the way it's playing out on our coastline. And now we've done this expedition. We've done up to 160 days on the ocean without coming ashore on the Fukushima's expeditions for life. And Elaine Campbell, and Janet and Fred Saxon, and so many other people, but those two in particular, every time this operation grinded or was about to grind to a halt, they stepped up and withdrew from themselves, enormous courage to fund this and make sure that it continued on. And so, that recognition, we can never forget how much of an importance that played. Because without that, we couldn't be what we're going to be and who we are. Without that absolute positive proof. And it's been argued that Dana, after 4 expeditions on the coastline, that I had enough to make a documentary, and I did. Absolutely, 100% had enough material to make a documentary. But I didn't have enough to make the whole documentary, to tell the whole story, because I didn't cover the entire coast. And so I couldn't tell you the Zabalis, or Gold River, or Tassis, or Winter Harbor, or Cape Scott, or the coastline, 460 miles of coastline, had this or that or anything else if I didn't go and see it. And so, but by doing what we've done the entire coast of Canada, 15,000 miles, over a whole year period, looking at the damage. But the one thing that I realized that I don't talk about is why the radiation impacted the coastline so heavily, and I just want to crawl through that as quick as I can. I'm just worn out. The boat, I got so much to do tomorrow and the next day, get my stuff off the boat and finish that up. And then unpack everything I got here. But every night from here on out that I can get up, I will be doing a live stream at 8 p.m. Pacific Canada time. And at the same time, I'll be producing a documentary and a book. And at the same time, I'll be setting up, as I get close to finishing those, travel plans to go out and push this, because it's not going to push itself. And so I have to withdraw upon myself every aspect of my life in order to, and I can't even catch up to the last year of my life. It's just, I come home and I don't recognize home. Zoe did. She never shut up for the first 2 minutes. She almost lost her mind. She wanted to get out of the truck. She knew where she was. That was awesome. But I'll just go back to the coastline so I can move on, because I keep digressing away from it. So here's how this works. Like, Japan had studies done on why farmers couldn't grow food, and what the farmers feel, the radiation was sticking to the rocks, and nothing could, and so the roots would normally run parallel and wrap themselves around the rocks and everything like that, but they couldn't stay there because of the radiation. The young, healthy roots couldn't get a hold of it because they were vulnerable to radiation. And so once they removed the rocks from the soil, they were able to grow a lot of food there, but, of course, it was radiated, and they can't eat it or sell it. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And so, now the coastline of British Columbia. So the plumes never stopped coming out of Fukushima. We still have 100% meltdown. Chernobyl stopped after 10 days. Chernobyl was equal to 400 Hiroshima bombs. Fukushima is 100% meltdowns. The buildings were snapped. They were destroyed by the earthquake. The fuel pools were snapped in two. Major damages in all the buildings from the earthquake itself. And the tsunami took out the infrastructure for 500 miles. And you got to realize 6 weeks on the ocean, it's hard for me to do a really articulating video tonight and have all kinds of pictures and bling bling. And it took me 4 hours today to get the microphone to work, and I couldn't get it to work with all my old sets that I already had made, so I have to do everything new, and that's fine too, and that's the future. In a few days, I want to get my senses about me orient, and the bed stops diving into the waves all night long, because the bed doesn't and the house doesn't stop right now. It's really bad when you close your eyes. It's like you're diving into the waves, and it's been so rough. It's been unimaginable rough, and I'll play some background minute of that. It's exceptionally rough, and this is what I dealt with most of the time. And I'm limited to and so the tidal zones. I'll finish that one. That's 5 times I digressed. So here's what happens: is the radioactive fallout comes in and hits the west coast. It hits the Rocky Mountains, and everything on that west side of the Rocky Mountains starts to wash. Not all of it. Lots of it goes in your estuaries, and your drinking water gets caught up on shorelines of rivers and rocks and everything else. But a lot of it is reliberated over and over and over and makes its way down to the coastline. And so if it's low tide, this stuff is running over those. Now up to that point, it's all force. And so the radioactive fallout at low tide, there's an immediate die-off. We know that now. Within 2 weeks, scientists in America in huge tracts of coastline that were studying the invertebrates and the marine life in the tidal zones noticed a mass mortality event. And that came out a number of months ago. Once again, I've been on the ocean in the last 365 days. I've been on it 260, 270 days, and the rest of the time getting ready to head back out. 5 expeditions, 5 emergency expeditions. And so the radioactive fallout comes in, it hits the coastline at the low tide zone, and it's all trees above it. But at the low tide is where it's a very vulnerable creatures. And once it eradicated them, it continued to fall out of the sky, and it coated the coastline. This stuff sticks to the rocks. Now, I'm not talking about any particular isotope because there's 2,000 of them. You need 2,000 Geiger counters calibrated to 2,000 individual isotopes that we know about. There's 10,000 classified, but the 2,000 that we know about, we don't worry about the classified. They can't be too bad because they're classified. and so the problem being is the life of the isotope would dictate how long before something can grow back there. But the issue is that was the nursery. And so we took out the nursery of the ocean. And so all the eggs and larvae and small fries and, which is the soup of life anyway, that was big enough to go looking for a place to hide, had no places to hide anymore, when normally there was 600 algae and everything else there. Now, so we done the coastline. I'm not going to try to cover that tonight because I haven't even got the pictures imported onto the computer. I do got the hard drive sitting up there. It's been non-stop since, and it's going to take me a couple of days to get up to the point where I got everything off the boat and I caught up with my own personal life here. But every night we'll do the live stream that I can get if I don't fall asleep. And so that's just me talking. So let me keep going here because otherwise I'll get lost in the freight. That was the cover picture. And so the model up in the corner of the world is NOAA's model, but that's only cesium-137 and iodine-131. And they didn't include the 10 times more iodine-132, the 30 times more iodine-133, or the 31 times more iodine-129 that's produced for every iodine-131. And the cesium-137 you see, which is in the model, and there's 100 times more strontium-90. And strontium-90 sequesters in your bone. It acts like calcium. And cesium acts like potassium, so it sequesters in your muscles, in your organs, in your heart. And so there's been an extreme amount of heart attacks, and particularly young athletes. And nuts for art, Lonnie, doing a wonderful job, and she's an absolutely adorable lady, and she's extraordinarily articulate and adamant and passionate. And so I just wanted to put that out there to make sure everybody understands that Lonnie has taken it to a whole new level, and we see her making huge gains as the future progresses here, and understands the urgency. And it's the people that are capable and have the courage and have the fortitude, that's something that kind of is natural to you. You end up taking these chances and you make these falls. It's like skating. You are going to fall, you are going to hurt your bum, and everybody is going to laugh at you, but you're going to get back up and do it again and again and again and again, because that is how life is cruel, and life will throw you. Like me, I just went down the coastline of Canada most of the way on a 9.9 kicker, and 10 to 18 foot seas. I did wait till the wind came down, trust me, but it was a 20-mile jump, and then I'm stuck there for the low tide. And so, I picked my timing, and we pulled it off because I just didn't want to go back. And we need to get this done. And, if I'm there, I'm not going to pass that opportunity up. I'm going to get it done. I'm just not going to say, oh, well, this don't work. And I hit every mechanic on the west coast of Canada trying to solve the problem and didn't even get it diagnosed. It was a little depressing that they would send a guy who's disabled back out on the ocean in a broken boat. It was really disappointing for me. But I knew I had 2 kickers on the back of the boats, and brand new kickers that I can trust, and that I wouldn't put myself in a predicament anyway, right? Because the data had to come back. As long as the data came back, that meant I had to come back too. And so I used to look at it that way. Got to bring the data back, so be careful, take your time. There's no rush. You can wait it out. You're prepared. You've been through this before kind of attitude. And so just hunker down. 3 beach lines and a big friggin' anchor, stupid heavy anchor. That ain't going to go anywhere. It is hell to get back. And I seen one night, a few weeks back, and it was so bad all day I couldn't eat. And that night I was desperate for a cup of tea, but I still couldn't get a cup of tea. Couldn't even have a cup of tea. It was that friggin' rough. And the next morning, it was only 6 miles to safety, and I was pinned down in this little nook on the Wild West Coast. I knew I'd be okay there. I'd just go ashore if I had to, and I probably should have. But I was worried. You know, it was so rough there anyway that I wasn't worried because I had 3 beach lines and the anchor, but I was worried the weather might not break before I ran out of food. And there was twice that happened to me, where when the weather broke, I had to go looking for fuel, food, and water. And so we done everything morally and consciously that could be done. And everybody out there has put their back to the wall and gave me the push, and the final push home. You know, I can't say enough about Janet and Fred Saxon and Elaine Campbell, and the future will prove that anyway, that I can't. And I'm hoping that in the near future I'll pay back everybody every penny. You know, that would be the coolest thing imaginable, is to pay back everybody that donated. How cool would that be? And still have the foundation up and running and strong and back in their faces. And so I figure if I get out there and push everything and do a tour, not only do people get a chance to ask me questions, and hopefully, you know, and that's what I found out about the coastline of Canada. This particular trip I was recognized 4 times, and 2 of the hounds were in Fukushima. Corey came up to Fukushima, and bless Corey, and John Wind up in Tofino. Had me over, him and his lovely wife, and I really enjoyed that. That was a huge relief for me to get off the boat for a day and go sit down with people that I can have a conversation with and that were extremely tuned in. And so I feel really good about everything. I feel that I didn't leave anything behind, that I didn't miss any opportunity to get everything possible that I could get, and I got what I could get, which was like 100 species. And so Berkeley Sound was supposed to have another 1,800 species. And these are the indigenous population to the coastline. There's over 4 million species in the Pacific Ocean. Once again, let me reinforce that for people. The species I'm looking for are the ones that are indigenous year-round to the coast of Canada. And they've been highly studied. And we've covered every one of those areas that was studied. We've managed to hit them. Those coastlines, those stretches. We've done 20 miles just for 6 weeks straight. Every 20 miles of the entire, right from Alaska to the other end of Canada, the entire coast, bar nothing. That is crazy that anybody pulled that one off. And that's what we done, because we knew that that's had to get done. And, you know, so now that I know for sure, definitively, positively, without any kind of shadow of a doubt whatsoever, nobody can tell us, and as I get the pictures up, no one can tell you any different. That the impact is extraordinary, unsustainable, untenable, and frightening to say the least. It's an extinction event in every shape and form. The birds are missing off the entire coastline. There was no mass migratory of millions of birds and all the animals. There's 38 whales in the last 4 months. Usually only 8 whales die a year. I posted that video of the whale slapping his tail. You got to realize who I am. Spent my entire life on the ocean. I've worked in almost every industry on both oceans. And I've never seen a whale do that. That doesn't mean it didn't happen and I can't remember. I'm just saying that's how rare that is for me to see something like that. And there was 2 of them there. They were about 40, 45 feet each, the humpbacks. And I got a lot of pictures that will get up on the site that are definitely going to be worth looking at of that. And the whales up at Cape Scott, at the top of Vancouver Island. Now, I'm just talking off the side of my head, but visually, because I haven't went through the pictures, but visually they looked emaciated to me. And they hung around that one spot. And there was a spot to get ashore. I ended up spending a night there because the engine was broke down, and I was hoping to solve it in the morning, and I didn't. And I went around to Winter Harbor with the kicker, and so we pulled it off, but not without, you know, there's no courage without fear. And If it was the other way around, where there's a ton of courage with all fear, then I would be the most fearless person on the planet. But I'm not, and I struggled the whole time. I was tested in every shape and form. The motor would break down in the most unimaginable, the worst spots imaginable. And so it didn't take me long to have the kicker running all the time. And just in case the big one went down again. And you could get 18 miles of good, and then all of a sudden 2 miles of hell, and you give up on it because you can't get it to work. And it was just torture. But I wasn't going to give up, so we kept going. Now I'm home. The expeditions are all over, 5 of them. And I think, the focus now will be on many things. Health, education is so important for everybody that they have to get past. And it's so hard to have a conversation about radiation or Fukushima because it's such an alarmist topic. It's almost impossible not to sound like you're fear-mongering. No matter how you try to talk about it, no matter who tries to talk about it, that's the instant, it's like a trigger. And I understand that. And, I went through that. That's why we have 25,000 supporting documentations. That's why I blogged out 9,000 headlines. That's why I have 5,000 pictures of the reactors. It's because I had to find out whether the fear-mongering or bananas, potato chips, from water and sunshine, which one was on the right path. And so bananas, potato chips, water, and sunshine, getting on an airplane, got nothing to do with ingesting radiation. And so that turns out to be 70 years of those same sentences. That's what they always tell you. Oh, it's like a banana. Oh, you get more radiation from a banana. You get more radiation. And so that person is manipulating you on purpose. They're educated and they know better. They're mocking you. They're insulting you. That's a slap in your face. And they get a paycheck for doing it, and they don't see it that way. They have contempt for you. They don't care about you or themselves or their loved ones. So all reactors are hemorrhaging into your community all the time. That's why studies showing women are 6 times more likely to have breast cancer if they're within 15 miles of nuclear power plants, and that children are 20 times more likely to get cancers, particularly leukemias, if they're within 15 miles of nuclear power plants. And that's why the Americans, I can't remember the spot, I'll find it, the headlines for the next one, stopped a study about cancers around nuclear power plants in the last couple of weeks. It's because they got 70 years of lying to you, telling you it's like a banana, telling you it's like a potato chip. And we know who does that right now is Jay Cullen and Ken Buechler, right? Like Jay Cullen right here. I'm going to play I'm going to play a clip of Jay Cullen. And this is 2013 in late November on CBC Radio. They pulled it off to CBC Radio. This clip is edited, and so it's a little over a minute long. But he talks about how there's 1,000 times more natural radiation. He does this every time he opens his mouth, no matter where he's to, he'll say these same sentences. He'll say there's 1,000 times more natural radiation than there is man-made radiation, so there's nothing to worry about because there's 1,000 times more, and worry about that. But that's what you are acclimated through genetic superior selection, yeah? So when you eat natural radiation, your body basically off-gases. It's called homeostasis. It's like cruise control on a vehicle. It regulates the speed of the vehicle, or the thermostat regulates the temperature in your house. That's the same principle. And so I'll just play the clip for you so you can hear, but I needed to give you some context because you're not listening to the whole thing. It is on my site if you look for it. And 30 videos were removed. I don't know if that was removed or not. Here we go. Jay Cullen. Click on it, Dana.
The levels of radioactivity that are actually being measured are a factor of 1,000 below the concentrations and the activity of those naturally occurring radioactive elements.
And have there been any other nuclear meltdowns nearer the ocean that might provide some useful information on how radioactive materials, travel or what have you in oceans?
Well, I'm not aware of any meltdowns right next to oceans. The only sort of point of comparison that we have is Chernobyl in 1986. If something similar were to happen on the coast of Japan, it would be a very serious situation to find ourselves in.
And so that was Jay Cullen in 2013 November saying if there was a melted reactor, That would be very serious. Well, there's 3 melter reactors, right? And so Jay Cullen is funded by the nuclear industry here in Canada, but he's a sitting professor in the University of Victoria. And so he gets 600 samples at $600 a sample of water. He doesn't test the few algae that are left on the shoreline. He doesn't test the invertebrates or anything like that, or the krill or the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, oxygen and carbon sequestering chain for radiation. No. He goes out and takes water. And he's only testing for 1 isotope. He's not testing for 2,000 isotopes. And there's no one can prove that he's actually doing anything, because he lies constantly. He says there was no melted reactor, but if there was, he says that there's 1,000 times man-made or natural radiation compared to man-made. So shut up. If you tell me that's not disrespectful and outright lying, then you got a lot to learn about the very basis of what we talk about. This is Ken Buechler, right behind me here. Ken's Woods Hole Oceanography. Now, Jay Cullen was also Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, cheerleading lapdog. And these are the speakers for North America. That's the only 2 people that gets any traction in the media. These are not nuclear scientists. We have all kinds of nuclear scientists. And a nuclear scientist wouldn't say that stuff. But here was a candid presentation that Ken Buechler was giving at an institution where he actually says there's meltdown, the 3 meltdowns, melt-throughs, and melt-outs.
Because they had lost all cooling. That's the cause of the explosion, the overheating, the eventual meltdown and melt-throughs. But when you're doing that, you're putting water, first salt water, then fresh water, on reactors. They're leaking, the basements are filling up, there's groundwater, all mixing and directly discharging. And I'll show you data.
And so 3 meltdown, melt-throughs, melt-out. And so I see everybody in the comment section. I'm going to come over and say hi and good night in a little tiny bit. It's going to be a short stream tonight. So you see the center picture? That's what it looks like apparently on the inside of the building behind me. That's Unit 4, stripped down before they put a building around it. And just a reminder, let's go have a quick boo at all the reactors for something to do before I call it a night. You got to hang on, Zoe. You can't jump from up there. Don't jump from up there. No, you stay right there. Lie down. So that was Unit 1. I'm just going to run through this stuff. This is Unit 1. This was 100% meltdown, melt-through, melt-out. We'll just run through that. This was a heat signature of the melted reactors. The buildings were all destroyed. This is Unit 2. This is 100% meltdown, melt-through, melt-out. This was the reason they evacuated the plant, was Unit 2. That was headline, and I covered those headlines many times. That's Unit 2. You can see the heat signature up in the corner. Hang on, Zoe. This is Unit 3. You can see it totally destroyed the entire building, wrecked the whole infrastructure permanently. And they said, no, there's no damage to the fuel pool. Well, the fuel pool was up high. There's nothing left up high. And then the temperatures reached 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And so nothing lasted. Nothing can survive it. And then the fuel pool melted right down through the reactor and on down through the containment, on down. Because it's so hot, there's nothing on the planet can contain it. They call it a containment, but you can't contain. It's only meant to contain around 1,700, 1,800 degrees. You can't contain 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And fuel pools can go in a chain reaction and turn into a China, what do you call it? I can't remember. China syndrome effect. The building's detonated. Look at this detonation. Hang on, I'm going to have to go let Zoe. I got to let Zoe down. Hang on, Zoe. I'm coming over, buddy. Yeah, I got you. Here we go. Ah, weirdo. I got you. Then I got your big butt. You okay? I'm not opening the door because you're going to go barking. You're going to take off, and I won't see you for half an hour, and all I hear is Zoe out there bark, 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 bark. You'll be okay. Hang her down where I can keep an eye on you. So this is an expanded image. Unit 1 is over to your left, all the way over in the corner. That's Unit 1, 100% meltdown. That's Unit 2, 100% meltdown, melt through, melt out. That's Unit 3. It's over here. Maybe that's Unit 3 in there. There's a little bit of Unit 3 right there. Look at the walls that broke off. These beams, you were able to turn an SUV around on those beams. That's how big it is. These buildings were 10-story buildings. That's Unit 4. That's Unit 4. Now remember what I was telling you about Unit 4, what I showed you about Unit 4. They stripped that down, right? And they say the fuel pool was inside of whatever's left there. But anyway, let me keep going as we say goodnight here. Let me go back and finish off what we were doing before we say goodnight. And where's that folder? There's only a few more pictures to run through. Now they say that fuel pool, there, you see that? Is inside of that Unit 4. Is inside of this. Look, all the way to the ground. Right? That's Unit 4. And this is what they done. They stripped it down. They built the thing on the outside of it. So if you build a thing on the outside of it, how does it look like that on the inside? Huh? Huh? I don't have the heart to go screaming tonight, or tomorrow night, or the night after. That's gone from me. I don't have the heart to be cursing and swearing anymore. I just don't have it in me. I just don't have it anymore. It's time to reach as many people as we can, so I'm going to slow it down, calm it down, and I'll keep things moving lively. As you can see, the building's totally destroyed, right? Completely, utterly destroyed. That's destroyed. The building, look at it. It's totally destroyed every way you look at it, but yet it looks like that the roof does on the inside, yeah? So you see why I do the things I do, because why that might be acceptable for other people is not. Other people can ignore it. I can't. Why are they lying? You know, that's a question you need to ask yourself. Not me. You can though. I'll probably tell you too. But because that's the cover up. So you don't think about Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3 is 100% meltdown, melt through, melt out in the chain reaction. That's why we can't put a sarcophagus over Fukushima. And that people like Ian Goddard and James Colbert, who says there's nothing wrong, but yet has Fukushima Update has a website. Oh, there's nothing wrong there, but they got a website dedicated to Fukushima and Ken Buechler and Jay Cullen. And so the people we put our faith and our hopes into have too often turned out to be the controlled opposition. And then I go out and I get together with all of us, because I couldn't do it by myself. I could do all the physical stuff by myself, but I couldn't put this whole operation together by myself. And, you know, like Kate at the Fukushima Hounds, who I certainly, you know, I do put her link below, and I mention her all the time for people, but it's still not enough for what she has done and continues to do, and understands how to do it, and the importance of doing it, and the perseverance that it takes to do it, and try to have your own life. And as always, a pleasure to talk to and to visit with, like whether it's on the phone or a website. And it's just because it's genuine. And so most of the opposition come from these two, Jay Cullen and Ken Buechler, both of these from Woods Hole Oceanographic. The people who told you BP wasn't bad was Woods Hole. The people who told you the dust on 911 wasn't bad was Woods Hole. Woods Hole has been at the center of every controversy on environmental corporations, nightmares out there created by corporations. And a corporation that's on a stock exchange has human rights, and that's like people like Google don't go to jail and get a criminal record because they're a corporate personhood, and that's an illegal amendment to the slavery law. Right? Justice Hugo Black wrote eloquent dissent in 1939 of how absurd it was that an amendment meant to free slaves from an oppressive government was used by corporations to oppress the sovereign people, which is you, by manipulating a slavery law to give corporations human rights. I mean, that is the secret, and has always been sitting right there to take away the power that the corporations wield upon our society. So if a Starbucks and McDonald's or Walmart and a few other these corporations come into your community, every mom and pop shop is out of business. And then the corporations put their money in offshore accounts, and they don't pay state, federal, local taxes. And so your local community, town council cannibalizes the little people in the community, the property and everything else. So property has to keep going up in order to keep up with the amount that your local government steals, because the the corporations won't pay any local, federal, or state taxes. And then the money is in the offshore account is used to pay fines because nobody can get a criminal record or go to jail. And so I know I just went off into one of my little ha-ha moments. And so let me come over and say goodnight to everybody. And let me stress how proud I am to know everybody and to have your support and to be back and have the ability now to know that we are in a moral fight and a justified fight for the very existence of the species that are left and that are clinging, and that the Pacific Ocean, you can't save it even if you did stop Fukushima. Well, we have to stop Fukushima. There is nothing more important, and that the future generation would say, why didn't we focus in on stopping? Yeah, we can't change what's happening and happened, but we can change what continues to happen by removing the homeless who do nothing but create accidents and releases and are used to make mistakes, and then sending all the Harvard and Yale and Berkeley and Stanford and Oxford and MIT mouthpieces, the big shots, to send them in there. I don't care if they die of cancers. I don't care if they die of the 1800, like cancer, like Laurent Moret would tell you, is cancer is the mouse in the room. The 1800 autoimmune deficiencies is the elephant in the room. Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, heart attacks, failures of your kidneys, of your organs. These are all, and the problems and the diagnosis associated with that, are very time consuming, and organ transplants and everything else. And so all of this is there's 1800. Don't worry about cancer, that's 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Worry about the 1800 autoimmune deficiencies that are recognized. And I mean, the studies were done on the animals. Dr. Raymond Gilmet, he killed beagle dogs and beagle puppies for 35 years, and they know exactly what several atoms of plutonium or americium is going to do to you and how long it takes to kill you. And I covered 84 of those studies on this website. It's disgusting, but they're not the only ones out there. And so there's 4.3 million, the three biggest publishing houses on the planet with 20,000 publishing outfits under their belt. And so they get the copyrights from all your universities and institutions. And you go to university, you got a library. That's just a little tiny library. They might have paid $400, $500, $1 million for that library to lease it off elsewhere. But 4.3 million other academic studies, 3 a minute, are published and locked away. You won't get to read them no matter what university you're at. You only get what your university library buys for the curriculum of your school. Hi, Shani Ken. Yeah, I love you, honey. Thank you for everything you've done. Really, truly. It's sad, unfortunately, but you did do the right thing. See? It's just like Janet and Fred. It's sad that, and they knew that, and you knew that, So Chuck, Miss Milky the Clown, Bert D, and India, I'm on the East Coast, so many idiots, they don't even know, I can't pronounce your name. No Andos. That hole is where they throw the truth. That's Woods Hole. That's where they throw the truth, down Woods Hole. That's a funny one. Dr. Goodhart, who never stops. Gruce me. Standing Foot, hey buddy. I'm your author. Missing Sky, Atom, Selene. Yeah, thank you folks. It's great to be home. Trust me. Kate. And you'll find Kate's link below the site. It's the Fukushima Hounds. It's under all my other videos. If you can't find the links, the bunch of links I always have on there. Kevin Blanche will be down there. So please support Kevin. He doesn't stop. He's done everything right his whole life. Starlight! And he needs your support. He's the real deal. Go find his radio interviews. You'll see what I mean. We're privileged to have him on the planet. Let's take advantage of it while he's still here. He's been to hell and back. And so, anybody I didn't say to tonight, good night to, I'm sorry. I'm going to bed. I'm going to get a cup of tea and call it a night. Get up tomorrow morning, finish off the boat so I don't have to touch that no more. And in 2 or 3 days, I'll start uploading pictures and all that other stuff. Will take probably a month and a half to upload all the pictures. At the same time, I'll be making the documentary, the book. At the same time, I'm going to be blogging every night unless I fall asleep. I'll be back the next night, though. And I'm looking forward to it. That's what I want to do. And I'm so happy that I got this first stream done. Trust me. Hugs, everybody. Take care.